Everyone to Open Line. Glad you're with us tonight. We are talking with the executive director of the ACLU in Tennessee, Hedy Weinberg, joining us via Zoom about a lawsuit the ACLU has filed against the state of Tennessee. And this law is supposed to go into effect tomorrow about signage on bathrooms in businesses. Really, I guess the sponsors have said it is not about the transgender community, but certainly the transgender community is concerned, and the lawsuit says it's, of course, targeting the transgender community. Well, again, Hedy Weinberg joining us via Zoom. We have a few calls here, so let's go to the phones. Let's go to Mary. Hello, Mary.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Mary. Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Yes. I'm kind of old school, and I think we're wasting our time on this bathroom thing. Once a man in your DNA. Once a woman, you're a woman in your DNA. I certainly don't want men coming in the bathroom with me. And we have women and seniors here in this country starving to death, veterans that need care, and we're wasting and spending time on this. I think it's ridiculous. Move on. Thank you.
Okay. All right. What do you think about that?
Well, I think perhaps for different reasons, but I agree with Mary. I mean, we have some pretty serious problems. Veterans who need better health care, people who don't have affordable housing, our infrastructure falling apart, and instead our legislature is choosing to focus on an issue that's not a problem and wanting to target community people, in this case the transgender community, and forcing businesses, again, businesses who are providing tax dollars to our states, businesses who are choosing to have restaurants, public spaces. Our Chattanooga plaintiff has a wonderful space that's a performing arts center, and I couldn't agree with Mary more. This is a waste of time, but what we've seen our legislature do is choose not to focus on the real serious problems that she raises, and instead target communities and try to harass and marginalize people. Now,
Mary said also it makes her uncomfortable. You know, she's a woman. She's uncomfortable if a man or someone saying their man goes into her bathroom. And I know that Mary wouldn't be alone in expressing that opinion. And so if that's out there, and certainly these politicians, when they go and speak to their people, that's what they're saying. That's what's getting people riled up, potentially. What do you say to that?
Sure, and thanks actually for asking that or making that point. Look, there are laws that prevent men from going into women's bathrooms, and same probably women going into men's bathrooms, but there's a lot of fear, and I would have that fear as well if a man walked into a woman's bathroom. That's illegal. We're talking about transgender people, and I think, and Mary, I appreciate when you said your home's old school. I mean, I think what's happened here is folks haven't had the opportunity, the experience of sharing a conversation, a cup of coffee with people from the transgender community. It's similar to how people felt about when there was segregation about Black individuals, or people felt about Jews when they entered settings that no one had met Jews before in rural communities. It's the same, or certainly around the lesbian gay community, where people never knew a gay person or a lesbian. That's not the same anymore. The transgender community, though, some folks still haven't met individuals who are trans, and I think they don't quite understand. We're just talking about human beings. We're talking about folks who live in urban settings and live in rural settings in Tennessee, who are contributing members of society, who own businesses, who are doctors, who are parents. We're not talking about men who are pretending to be men, pretending to be women and walking into a women's bathroom. That is illegal, and that individual would be arrested. We're talking about people who are transgender women, and they are women, just the same way we argue today about transgender girls who should be able to play sports. And the legislature, as they passed a bill to prevent transgender girls from playing on the team that matches their gender identity. Transgender girls are girls, transgender boys are boys. It's language that's getting confused. but certainly support your concern about men walking into women's bathrooms. That's not acceptable, and it's illegal.
Okay. All right, let's go to Linda. Hello, Linda.
Hello. I just wanted to make a comment. I think we have the worst governor in Tennessee now that we have ever had. He doesn't do anything for the people to help them, and the way he handled the whole COVID thing is ridiculous. We're one of the lowest in the country as far as vaccines. And here he just tries to stir up trouble over transgender issues or passing the guns without permits. He's horrible.
So yeah, I guess you're saying you oppose this, and this is an
Yes.
example. Okay.
Well, I oppose him signing this. I think it's ridiculous. He's just a bigot.
Okay. All right, Linda. All right. Thank you for your call. Now, he was elected. These lawmakers that are passing it are elected. The reality is there is support for some of this stuff, and part of it might be that people aren't fully educated or whatever. It's easy. These are really emotional issues for people, and it's easy to get people worked up about them. But there are people that support this. Now we've just had 2 calls, that maybe 1.5 that are opposed. But I guess what do you think? Do you want to comment on what Linda had to say there?
Well, I think you just made a point that I want to underscore, which is you said it's easy to get people worked up. Our government, our governor, our legislators, they're, yes, elected by the people, but their job is not to respond to the emotional feeling that they might hear or response they might hear from their constituents. But I would hope that they would also lead. And we have not seen leading by our legislature who supported these bills, and certainly not by the governor who signed 5 anti-trans bills, a governor who says that he believes in business having, a welcoming environment, a governor who, talks about his faith and his welcoming, inclusive attitude. And so I think it's important, and Linda said it, and you responded, it's really important that we expect those people we elect to sometimes guide us and to be, for lack of a better word, a bit more thoughtful and reflective and mature about who we are as, in this case, a state. Life is not the way it was in the 50s, and yes, we are always been a diverse world, a diverse community. And now what we have, which is really more exciting and to be celebrated, is the idea that the transgender person can live authentically and not feel that they have to live behind closed doors or be ashamed. And so it's really troubling to see a majority of our legislators, and certainly our governor, be willing to harass and marginalize folks who already have a hard time struggling with, coming to that place where they can be who they are and be their authentic self.
And I think the other thing people don't understand, how there are not a lot of transgender people out there. This isn't a huge group of people. Am I right? And so my point there is there an issue? Is there an instance where this is even a problem? They've passed this bill, and I don't. Well, let me ask another way. You're looking at this sports bill. You're also concerned about that. You said maybe you have a plaintiff. You're looking for other plaintiffs. I just don't know how many people this really affects. And maybe it's scaring people to think they're everywhere and we don't understand, and people say we need to have a cup of coffee. There's just not tons of transgender people out there, and I don't think people need to be scared that they are, and at all. I don't know. How widespread is this situation?
Well, I don't want to speak about it as widespread or not. I think there's no problem. There's no one who's been able to point out when they spoke in support of the bill that was signed by the governor and became law that prohibits transgender youth from playing on athletic teams that match their gender identity. There is not one legislator could point to an instance where they said there was a transgender girl playing on a team and competing in a way that they would, as the legislature say, steal a scholarship opportunity. One, they have no situation to point to, and more importantly, and I think, and this is where we need to get to, transgender kids, they just want to be kids. They just want to be part of the team. This is not anyone competing to, be part of the Olympics. And if they are, good for them. But that's not happening in this state. It's not happening anywhere. And so, again, this is really easy to get people worked up about, and I think it's about political expediency. I think it's, frankly, exploitation. There's not a whole lot of respect, I think, that our legislators show their constituents. They respond. The sponsor of the bill said he heard about it at a fundraiser, and that's why he decided to file the bill. That's not how you make decisions about legislation. One would think, and I think one of the callers said it earlier, we had a pandemic we were living through during the legislature when they were in session. These are the kinds of bills they were debating. They were not talking about vaccinations. They were not talking about access to health care. They were not talking about education equity. This is where we want them to spend their energy and time. And I think and they weren't talking about job opportunities. They weren't talking about ensuring that people in their rural districts are not losing their hospitals. We know about all the rural hospitals are shut down. So what are they really doing except, I don't know, glad-handing each other, backslapping each other when they think, look what we did. What did they do? But to harass and marginalize.
We have another caller here, Linda. I think it's another Linda. Is that right, Linda?
Yes, my name's Linda.
Well, great. Well, go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Okay, I'd like to ask Mary a question. Does she really think that God made a mistake when he made girls and boys? And I think that ACLU is trying to force things on people that we're not wanting to be forced upon us.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Linda, for the call. Let's ask Hedy Weinberg about that. All right. So you heard what Linda had to say there. What do you say?
Probably the easiest and best answer is ACLU is not trying to force anything on anyone. We are, our role, our responsibility under our charter is to protect Tennesseans' rights and ensure that the constitutional guarantees, both in the state constitution and to the U.S. Constitution, are guaranteed to all Tennesseans. And so this particular case focuses on the transgender community because they're the ones targeted, but recognize that businesses, places like Cracker Barrel, places like Amazon, they all spoke out against these kinds of bills, and especially this bill, which would violate businesses' free speech rights. So there are a number of very large corporations and then smaller corporations, but the larger ones that you would know, who are opposed to this kind of legislation, and also to the legislation that prohibits transgender youth from playing on athletic teams in their schools that match their identities. So this is really not about ACLU. I am proud of what ACLU is doing in terms of filing the lawsuit, but this is not about ACLU controlling anyone. It's about really the constitutional protections that all Tennesseans have.
Because you're representing here businesses. Your two plaintiffs in this are businesses because they don't want to put up a sign that says notice in yellow on a red background. This facility maintains a policy of allowing the use of restrooms by either biological sex, regardless of the designation of the restroom. So they don't want to have to put up these signs everywhere. You're representing here in this lawsuit that we are discussing businesses. Isn't that right?
Exactly. Businesses and nonprofits. And again, many of the companies, Alliance Bernstein, who's based in Tennessee, but in Nashville, but many companies based in Tennessee, at least 95 companies, I think, from across the country, but a lot in Tennessee, spoke out against many of these bills, but especially the signage bill. So it's really incumbent, I think, upon all of us to be more reflective about what it means to be a loving, inclusive community. And that's, that's language a lot of people use, clergy use, we use, I'm sure some of your callers use, but it means you don't pick and choose, who gets what rights. It means that rights and equal treatment and equal protection are provided to all people. That's what the Bill of Rights is about, and the state constitution.
All right, we will take a break. If you want to call in, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.